Lather Talk, a Wetshaving podcast. I'm your host, John, aka Latherhog, and with me as always is my co-host, Gerard.
Hey, hello everyone. Glad to be here again.
And for our very special guest today, we have from Stirling Soap Company, Mr. Rod Lovan. Hi Rod, how are you doing?
Just fine, John. Thanks for having me on.
We're so glad that you could be with us today.
Pleasure's all mine.
The actual first question is talking about family stuff, but I don't know if that's the best place to start, Gerard. What say you?
It could be. I mean, congratulations are in order, I believe. Right, Rod?
Yes. Thank you very much, Gerard.
Yeah, I'm actually a first-time father 3 months ago. Well, almost 4 months. So,
What day was child born? Boy, girl?
boy, March 30th.
Oh, nice. We had our third son on April 1st, so
Oh,
right after.
Right. Oh, there you go. So yeah, like so many people had their kids like within that couple of days span.
We wanted a girl just because I'm in my 40s now, my wife's in her mid 30s, and we wanted a girl just because Mandy's an awesome homemaker. She's really good at sewing, really amazing at cooking, and just a wonderful woman to begin with. And I wanted her to have a daughter so bad. Just wasn't in the cards. And at this point, I'm too old for another. Because by now, when Lucas turns 18, I'll turn 60 not too long afterwards. We're done. So it's all boys. That's it.
Yeah, no, my mom was the same way. As three boy, my mom wanted a girl so bad, and after the third boy, 3 strikes, you're out. She's like, I'm done. I can't do it. So, but yeah, it's been interesting, definitely during, all of this to happen. So, in one way, I think it's been good because we haven't had a lot of distractions with a lot of people coming by and things like that.
Yeah.
And we've been fortunate, that we've been able to that work has been okay. So yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. The actual it's funny because I kind of pitched John kind of like to talk about this because the real question is how has this whole coronavirus thing like affected being a third-time father and business in general, for everything.
Well, so when we went up to the hospital, it was only me allowed in with Mandy. She wasn't allowed any visitors, my parents, her parents. No one was allowed to come down. And then our son was born with a heart anomaly, as well as he had an infection in his heart and a hole in his heart, as well as Epstein's anomaly. So he spent the first 10 days of his life in the NICU, and only one of me or my wife was allowed in there at one time, and it was probably the hardest time of my life by far. It was absolutely miserable. I've never, I spent 3 tours in Iraq, and I was never as scared as I was when they told me that my son had to be rushed to the NICU, and we couldn't see him, and they couldn't when we asked if he was going to live, they couldn't even give us an answer to that. So you throw COVID-19 on top of that to where, a day after Mandy's recovered, we have to leave the hospital. So we went to a hotel, and any time that we could visit, even if it was just to look at him while he slept, we went through there. But it would have been a lot nicer had it without the COVID. One of us would have been able to stay at the hospital with him all the time. But it worked out. He's doing very well now. He's progressing just like a normal kid. And other than, the normal stuff that when you have an infant or a newborn, work really hasn't been affected since that 10-day period where we are having to just be in the hotel and back and forth to the hospital. So it's, Corona has been obviously a wrecker through the country, but we've managed to weather it really, really well so far. And having all our children be healthy and my entire family healthy, The business side of it honestly doesn't matter to me. We expected when this whole thing started, and we did. We expected to see a pretty significant loss of business as people were laid off from their jobs, or they saw cuts in income and things like that. And we did. We went through a period where we were cutting hours of our employees. We'd cut them down to 35 hours a week instead of 40, and we were preparing to cut them down to 30 and possibly lay our part-time workers off. Um, and then we kind of caught a lifeline when the county judge called up and asked if we had the capability to make hand sanitizer. Um, so I was like, well, yeah, absolutely. So we started making hand sanitizer for the county. We donated to the county and to the city for their first responders, police, firemen, and other first responder personnel, so that they'd have everything. Um, and then once we had them taken care of, we put it for sale on our website. And instead of having to lay people off, we ended up making a couple more hires because we had so many people, lined up to buy our hand sanitizer that we couldn't keep up with orders. So I mean, it was honestly, it went from a pretty scary situation to just a real blessing for us. I hate to use that term in a situation like this, but um, it did throw our business a lifeline, and we've been able. Orders have slowed down since then as hand sanitizer has become more readily available through normal channels. Um, but that little boost kept us going through this entire thing.
I wasn't kind of expecting it to kind of go along the route. I mean, that really, I mean, to say it's a blessing, it's okay to say that. I think given the circumstances and whatnot, because where so many people are unemployed, or and you see businesses closing down, and stuff like that, or just trying to, you know, um, thin out any margins. I mean, you're right. It's just a blessing is probably the perfect word to describe, you know, what happened to you. Because I don't know if any other people in wet shaving can even say the same thing.
I haven't had a chance to reach out to a lot of. I mean, I do have friends in the wet shaving world. I've met a lot of guys. We try to go to meetups once or twice a year. We try to make the Maggers meetup. So I've gotten to be pretty good friends with a handful of the folks in the wet shaving market. Which the people that have been around it for a long time are, for the most part, they're all really good guys, and we get along. And when we have situations like that, but I haven't reached out to them. But I'm hoping that right now, as the economy seems to be hanging on a little bit, that they're all surviving, and if not, thriving. Um, but like I said, for us and for our part, we I mean, you're right. I guess there's nothing we can call it except a blessing. It worked out really well for us.
There have been just so many releases as of late. John and I were like talking on the side. It seems like no one has particularly slowed down, and people are still selling out, relatively quickly of certain releases and whatnot. And so, I think the hobby in itself, has not slowed down amidst this whole pandemic.
That's good to hear. I said we've been so busy with getting with not only with Lucas and adjusting to life, having another child here, which we weren't expecting, but also we're in the midst of restoring a building right now to set up the coffee roastery. So my free time, I used to spend a lot of time on wet shaving forums, or on Wicked Edge, or on the wet shaving subreddit, just flipping through, seeing what the trends are, seeing what everybody's up to, and checking how things are doing. And just when I have a free moment now, I'm trying to squeeze in as much time with Mandy and the boys as I can. And I'm hoping here in about 3 weeks, once the coffee roaster's finally installed, that we can breathe easily for a minute, and maybe I can sit down and just kind of catch up on what everybody is doing.
No, it's probably better for your mental health that you're just focusing the on what needs to be, on the family and everything like that. So it's probably better for you in the long run.
Did any of those plans, I guess, kind of on the periphery of the soap company, were those stalled, or how were those affected by the outbreak?
So they were stalled to begin with because we live in rural Arkansas, and there's which has its own challenges. It does provide us a benefit over, say Barrister and Man, coming out of Cooperstown, New York, and he's also spends time in Boston. He's Will comes in, and he's going to have overhead that I don't have because he's in an area where it costs more to do business. Um, for example, the buildings that we bought for the coffee roastery, it's just under 10,000 square feet, and we paid 50 grand for it, which is
Wow.
unreal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, granted, in that 50 grand, they're 93-year-old buildings, and they needed a lot of restoration work. But they're on the National Historic Register, and we're happy to be restoring a piece of history and bringing them back. But that said, when it's done, I still own the buildings outright for a fraction of what it would cost if I was doing the same business in Los Angeles or New York or anywhere else. So, we've got that built in. The coffee roastery is right across the street from the buildings that we restored to put Stirling Soap Company in. So, we're slowly restoring what's a pretty dilapidated downtown here in rural Arkansas. So the initial problems we had was finding contractors to do the work. We had hoped to have the roaster installed and be roasting before Christmas or shortly thereafter. But we ran into all types of issues finding people to do the work, including stuff as absolutely silly as, I'm sorry, I don't take jobs during deer season. And then when they called me at March and said, hey, do you still need work? No, not from you. I don't. Thanks. You can. But we were able to find a really good crew. I've got an awesome crew that is helping us with the restoration now. We've got the HVAC going in. Tomorrow is insulation, and then the last thing will be August 3rd to 5th. We'll have the floors done. The roaster is already there. It was delivered 2 weeks ago. So sometime around August 6th or 7th, we plan on getting the roaster finally into the actual building and installing it. And then, a week or so from there, we'll start doing our test roast on the machine, because I've never used a machine this big. Nor is Mandy. The biggest we've ever used is a 6 kilogram, which is, it's an artisan batch. And then the one we're using right now will roast 20 Ks, about 45 pounds of beans at a time. So it's, we're gonna be sending out a lot of free coffee to people before we actually, we feel comfortable in the machine, where we're putting out a premium product and ready to move on from there.
I'm willing to try executive man flavored coffee, just to
Oh
let
my
you
God.
know.
You would not believe how many I've said, will there be an executive man coffee?
Oh, kill me. I mean,
Notes
I'm
of
not,
pineapple and birch tar.
I'm not surprised because it's just so silly. But I mean, I can only imagine the number of probably emails or messages you get. I'm just like, really? That's hilarious, though.
It's good though, because it makes me feel confident in this venture, because it's not a huge stretch, because I think a lot of people who are willing to leave Barbasol and Gillette and go back to wet shaving, I think a lot of them in all likelihood are already drinking a good premium coffee. They're not getting a Folgers crystals. So I'm hoping that the pivot, but the fact that we get so many emails, hey, I'm getting ready for an order. How close are you on the coffee? Do I need to wait? Gives me hope that we're going to, be successful from the onset in this.
Was there always a vision to do a coffee roastery, or was this something that was just born out of a passion for coffee in general?
We actually originally came up with the idea, I want to say 5, 6 years ago. It may not have been that long. It was around the time Luke, um, Carrie Siebert's son there at Soap Commander, he had started roasting, just at home on a, in an oven, just doing oven roasts. And, it wasn't bad coffee, but it was like, they've got a really great idea here. Because, it's, if you're willing to pay for good soap, you're probably going to be willing to pay for good coffee. And I live for coffee. I mean, if you took coffee away from me, I would probably just quit and move up in the mountains. So it was, like I said, it was born out of something that we thought that it was just a natural fit, but also it was something that we're both passionate about. And honestly, Mandy's a better roaster than me. She's got a better nose for it. She chalks it up to the pregnancies and everything that comes along with that. But she's fantastic of that with that, and she'll be the lead roaster. And actually, she's the head of the company. We're 50-50 owners of Stirling Soap Company, but while I'll be employed by the coffee company as well, she's the sole owner of the company.
Well, that's very exciting. Quick coffee question for you: do you have a preferred brewing method?
We just use a pour over. Um, we've got a handful of, I keep a ceramic pour over at work, and we've got a couple of ceramic pour overs at home, depending on what size brew we're doing. If I'm doing it for myself, or a carafe for Mandy and I. But I prefer a pour over that I can know how much beans to how many beans to grind, and how much weight I need in there. Get the water to the temperature that I want it, and it's all controlled.
That's the right answer.
It really is. It really is. People don't. A lot of people don't realize how much difference there is in. Before we really got into this years ago, Mandy thought McCafe, McDonald's coffee was good coffee, and it's not that it's terrible. Not that I won't drink it if I'm on the road, or even Dunkin' Donuts coffee. It's not bad, but I mean, having something that you have ground yourself and has been roasted,
Mhm.
72 hours previously, and you've controlled all the variables between how many grams of coffee you have in there, and you've got that water temperature at a perfect 203. It makes a huge difference.
So I'm into food and restaurants and well, when they're actually open, but I make the kind of the same case for steaks, right? Like you might get like your diner steak, your Denny's or Norm's, like steak and eggs for like 10.99, and then eventually you make it to like USDA Prime Steakhouse, and you get that thing for the first time, and it's like a completely different experience, and you're like, oh, these come from the same animal. These were cooked like somewhat similarly. Like it's not even like the same thing, and I feel like it's the same thing with coffee. Like you say that like it's not bad, but it's just not even in the same universe as
Oh,
just
absolutely
having
not.
just like having something that you grind yourself, you brew yourself, whether you're using a pour over, a French press, even a mocha pot or something like that. um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
if you can buy a 2 pound tin of coffee for $10, and they're still making a profit on it, you're getting what you pay for.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And so I think there's probably not, like, this is what probably one of the best times to have something like a coffee company, because so many people are wanting to experience something a little bit more pleasurable at home. I think shaving is actually also really like related to that. There's like something therapeutic about the process of wet shaving. There's something therapeutic about the process of brewing your own premium coffee at home.
So it's something for a lifestyle for us, because while, to start with, just out of necessity, we're going to be working with importers to bring in our coffee for us. I like to travel though, and I want our eventual goal is we want to set up actual relationships with the actual farmers, whether it be Kenya, Ethiopia, Honduras, Brazil, Colombia, wherever it may be. We want to be able to set up individual relationships so that we can say that we know the people that we're getting our coffee from. We can actually say we're ethically sourcing this for one, and we're not trusting an importer to say that this is happening. But we can also say, we've got we go and we take the steps to ensure that the people that are doing the actual, the bulk of the work that's involved in coffee takes place long before I'll get it. And for a lot of those people that are doing it, they're not paid a living wage. And that's something that, if we're going to be selling a premium coffee, it's I'm happy to leave some money on the table on my end if it means on the front end that they're enjoying a better lifestyle. And so that's what we're trying to set up. We've got a couple of soil scientists at the University of Arkansas that we're trying to partner with right now, one from Honduras and one from Mexico. They actually just returned from Honduras a few months ago with some beans for us. And they just did the initial meet with a handful of farms. But what we're trying to do is, if I can afford to bring them on as consultants, so we would send them, around the world to these coffee farms to give them, allow them to test the soil, give them best practices, find out what they're lacking and what they can do to actually increase their yield in exchange for them being willing to work with us, rather than having for us to go through a co-op or an importer. And that way, it just hopefully it will allow us to keep the same type of pricing model that we have with Sterling, where you feel like, or for most people, when they buy from Sterling, they feel like they're getting good value for their money spent. And that's what we want to do with Sterling Roastery, is be able to provide a premium coffee where you're not paying, $18-20 for a 12-ounce bag. Not to say that it's not worth it, because we buy a lot of Onyx coffee, which, they're world championship roasters. Their coffee is just fantastic. But some of the stuff is we've paid up to $22-23 for a 12-ounce bag of coffee. But I'm hoping I can get away with, I don't want to charge that. We're hoping to keep it more like Sterling soap, to where we're providing exceptional value for what we're doing.
Rod, by any chance, speaking of value, there's a hashtag going on this week on the YouTube channels. I don't know if you've come across it, Value Slickness Week. So your soap is seeing like a lot of use on the YouTube this week.
That's honestly what we go for. I mean, when we started this, we were extremely underpriced and we weren't making money, but I didn't need to, because I was still in the Army. My wife was still, working full time as an IT specialist. So we didn't need Sterling soap to be profitable. But even still, now that this is our full time job, and we're running it like a business to make money, and we have employees who rely on us, our pricing model is based on, this is what Rod would feel comfortable paying for something. And so we could probably raise our prices and 10%, and most people probably wouldn't bat an eyelash. But like I said, I don't know that I would feel comfortable paying that much for soap outside of special occasion. I own soaps probably from 7 or 8 different artisans, because I do like to support other soap companies that we come across. And also, when you go to meetups, there's people always trading. I've got so much Katie's Bubble soap, it's not even funny. He's far and away my favorite vegan soap, and also just an awesome dude. Um,
Should
but
we have him? Should we have him on the show? Do you think, Rod?
Chris is hilarious. Chris
No.
is absolutely. I love that dude. I was sad that we didn't have Maggers meet up this year, because usually he and I get stuck on a table together. Um, so it ends up being a fun time. Let me address what Gerard was asking about as far as the value. He brought up, we were, like I said, when we were still, Mandy and I both working full time, it was a hobby and we weren't really making money at it. And even the first year after I got out of the army and she started working at it full time as well, I think we made in the first year about $10,000 revenue, not profit, revenue. And we were we were very fortunate that um, I had money saved up for one, but also we sold our house in Texas and moved back to Arkansas, to a house that my mom owned and which we eventually bought from her 2 years later. But every year since then, we've worked and we have shown an increase in revenues and profits, and we've got to the point right now where we'll probably never be more profitable just because of our pricing model. Um, I've ran the numbers every way I can think of. And with what we charge, about all I can do as we see revenue increases is I'll bring on new employees. Um, I mean, we might see little bits here and there. If when the coffee, that's where I'm hoping we can make some money. But with their stainless steel razors that we'll have coming out later this year, I'm hoping that those bring in more money. But as far without an increase in the price of our soaps and aftershaves, and especially our bath soaps are just barely profitable to begin with. Um, Without an increase in that, which I'm just not willing to do right now because I like where we're at as a business. I like the amount of you know orders that we have coming in and the amount of people that I see using our products. I'm just not comfortable raising prices. So at that point, we're kind of accepting that this is kind of our ceiling right now for what we can make. And I'm happy. We pay our employees well. We give them as much as we can as far as benefits, and we Mandy and I don't really want for anything. We're not wealthy, but we're not living in poverty, and we're not by any stretch of the imagination. We have a really good life. So it's just kind of one of those things. Why push it? Why try to squeeze an extra quarter out of every jar of soap just so we can see a little more when we're fine like we are? So we just use what we have, push it back into Stirling Soap Company, try to develop new lines like we've done with the deodorant, with the new razors, and push it over into the coffee company and see if we can't grow that way. I think right now we're under 250 an ounce for our soap, which is pretty cheap, um, given the majority of the players out there. And even at 350, and especially at $4 an ounce, I don't see us as a player in the market. We're not seen as that type of brand, and I have no desire to ever really go there.
I think a lot of people are even going to become more fans of you, that if they're not already, just hearing that, because especially in the world where you're seeing $4, $5, $6 an ounce, for soap, in some places, it's the fact that you guys are just so solid and firm in your pricing. It's just so great for the community, I think.
Well, I mean, not to sound, I'm not. It's not completely altruistic or out of what some kind of fiscal value. I mean, it is, but it's also because for me, I think it makes Sterling a little more recession proof. Um, I think if you see, or if you start to see, 6, 9, 12 months down the line, some real second and third order effects of a delay, a prolonged shutdown due to COVID-19, and a lot of people are losing their income, they're losing their any type of unemployment benefits, and or if they're just asked to take a pay cut to stay on, asking them, like you said, to pay $5, $6 an ounce for soap. A lot of them are going to, some are just gonna say, to heck with this, I'm going back to Barbasol. I can get that for $3-4 a can. My hope is that some of them will say, well, I can get a refill puck of Stirling that'll last me 4 or 5 months for $10, and I'll be good with that. I'm not a hobbyist anymore. I'm not buying every new release, but at least I'm still a wet shaver. And that's another reason for our pricing model, is because I wouldn't pay on regularly $5 an ounce for soap, period. But certainly during a recession, I'm not going to. So I'm hoping that by keeping our prices at this level, that we may not see some of the extreme highs that some of these companies do when they release a new soap, or they release a new set that's limited edition to just a couple hundred, and people are no one's ever going to be reselling Stirling Executive Man for $50 on eBay. It's not going to happen. But I'm hoping that at the same respect, you don't have to worry about people saying, well, I can't afford Executive Man anymore.
Has there any product that you've thought about doing that you're just like, not maybe, like, after kind of like envisioning it, you're just like, maybe not, maybe this is not the best product to like launch or something like that?
Well, the closest thing we've come to recently, honestly, would probably be the candles and the essential oils, the doTERRA style oils. So we've had a lot of requests to sell our stuff for diffusers, and we may still eventually do that. And we get requests all the time for candles. And 3 years running now, leading up to the holiday season, we've had plans. I've still got so many glass jars with lids, numbering in the hundreds. I've got wicks, wood wicks, string wicks, whatever you can imagine. And we get there and we realize it's just not something that we can put our full effort into, so it gets pushed off to the side. Um, we've had missteps in the past where we've pushed things out faster than they should have been, and so we try to avoid it now. And until we realize something, it's the perfect market, perfect situation to bring something to market, but also we've got the time and we've put in the time to make sure that what we're putting out is not a beta. It's something that's a finished product. So that's kind of what's pushed those off. The essential oils, honestly, would be easy. I'm just not sure that the market's there, because there's so many places that sell, vials of essential oils. And I'm not sure that, someone's going to want to come and buy lavender from us, or be willing to buy our Gatlinburg blend or something like that. So we kind of waffle back and forth on that. And like I said, we eventually may make it happen, and eventually the candles will happen. But right now, the focus is on the coffee, and to a lesser extent, the stainless steel razors that we've been working on for quite some time now. It's just Mandy and I still do all the product development ourselves. She and I both have. We both took on apprentices a couple of years ago as Stirling started to grow, and we've got 2 journeyman soap makers that work with us now that do a lot of the work for us, because there's just not enough time in the day for Mandy and I to make everything anymore. But we still, all the product development is done by us, because we want to make sure that it meets our standards. So, like I said, so right now we're not doing a lot of anything other than preparing for the coffee launch, just because we want it to be perfect, because it's one of those things, the whole coffee snob thing. It's a truth. I mean, there are people where if we sent them bad coffee, they'll never buy from us again. So we want to make sure that whatever we send them is going to be something that if they find fault in it, it's just because it's not up to it's not, something that is in their tastes. It's not because we're sending them an inferior product.
If you thought that Wicked Edge or wet shaving subreddits, can be quite critical, you should. I mean, I'm sure you've probably gone over and checked out the coffee subreddit, because they are.
I am subscribed to multiple coffee subreddits, and I almost never post. It's the same with fragrance. I never post in fragrance. Fragheads are the worst.
Yes.
I love them, but I
Yep.
will say it, they're the absolute worst.
Agreed.
And it's so, I go to places like, Base Notes and the our fragrance subreddits just to learn. But also to figure out what people are talking about, what's a trend, what can I maybe pick up on that someone in wet shaving hasn't done yet, that I can take something to a perfumer and say, hey, I need, I want to do a facsimile of this scent. Find something that someone's not done yet. But I'm certainly not going to go in there and try to, talk shop with those guys, because they'll just chase me away with a stick.
I can't believe he used Madagascar vanilla and not Tahitian vanilla like the top places do. Just I don't know.
Oh yeah, that kind of stuff. And you get that. I've talked to other artisans and they get the same thing. It's like, because if you're a guy, and like, we've got a lot of originals, but we've also got a lot of stuff that are their cologne dupes. And so you'll all the time you will get people that will say, this smells nothing like my bottle of Aventus. And you're as polite as you possibly can. You'll say, I'm sorry, it didn't meet your expectations. But at the same time, that little devil sitting on the left side of your shoulder is like, hey man, it didn't cost $200 for your bottle. So I'm not using the same ingredients that the House of Creed is to create batch, Echo 1756 or whatever it is. That's the new hotness. I'm we're limited.
So, Rod, you mentioned the stainless steel razor a few times, and I feel like there's been just quite a story behind that. So, I'm wondering if you can share with us kind of that journey of like the stainless steel razor. I'm thinking the point where really it shows kind of the integrity of yourself, of the Stirling brand, where you basically had to basically not sell a batch of the razors, right?
The
It
entire
was
batch.
pretty embarrassing. I mean, because honestly, it's something that I probably should have hopped a flight or taken a drive up to Chicago to where the machine shop was supposedly located. But yeah, we thought we were contracting the work to a USA based contractor to be using US made steel for these razors. And then when we got them in, we noticed that they had customs forms still attached to the boxes. So further investigation that they had outsourced the work to a Chinese company, and then they were still charging us US prices for machining. We got it fixed in the end. I mean, it was a pretty miserable process. Like I said, it was embarrassing because those razors, should have been out, almost a year ago. They should have been released, and we ran into so many problems. And then once we got that fixed, and we just had to say, hey guys, I'm really sorry, I can't sell these. I still have the razors. Eventually, what I'll probably do is beat them up. Get a Dremel tool and grind off the laser etching that says "Made in the USA," um, and try to see if I can't, if there's a market to sell them as seconds. But I'm not going to do that anytime soon, because we do have the real deal being turned in Wisconsin right now. Um, I've actually got a Zoom call with them tomorrow to go over the progress for it. Um, it's just one of those things that just, I don't know. We were so ready because the razors are beautiful, and they're not for everybody. They're extremely aggressive, and they require a pretty high level of manual dexterity. But it's just kind of like the soap and the scents that we do. It's my favorite razor I've ever used. I love it. I know there will be people that love it. There's also going to be people that hate it, and I'll be fine with that, because it's not something that's mass produced. But when it does finally come out, I'm hoping that it's triumphant, the way I've been picturing it for so long, and the way it should have been until that really sick moment where I found the customs forms and realized that I had 300 razors that were all laser engraved to say "Made in the USA" that were actually made in Shenzhen, China. So it's just, not to take anything away from the quality of the razor is fantastic. But however, there's actual laws against uh, doing things like that, concealing the origin of manufacture. So we can't sell them as is. We've had them in the hand of probably 2 dozen testers, and for the most part, the feedback has been really good. But I mean, at the same time, I know there's going to be people that buy them that should not buy them, and I'm actually going to actively try to caution people against buying them unless they know that they've used aggressive razors before and they like them, because I mean the blade gap on the hyper aggressive plate is it's scary to look at, to say the least. So and they're both blade forward. They've got positive blade exposure. So I mean you could slice yourself up really good, but if you know what you're doing, you've got a deft hand. I don't waste time shaving. Shaving's no longer it's no longer a hobby for me. So I go one pass and I'm out. So that's why I use our hyper aggressive razor. I can go single pass right against the grain and I'm done. And I rarely get a weeper. I never nick myself. And usually my shave feels fantastic until, for 2 days until I'm ready to shave again. So, I mean, that's who we're targeting with these razors is people that know they like aggressiveness and efficiency.
This is your taste in a razor, right? Because if you want that one pass against the grain, you know what you're doing. It sounds like you wanted that as a official razor for under the Stirling name. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. When we were working with the engineer and the machinist to design it, we did the handles for these almost 4 years ago now. I mean, this has been a project that's been going on for a while. We've gone through multiple head designs until I finally found an engineer um, who didn't try to guide me in what he thought would make the best razor. He actually listened to what I wanted and cut a prototype for me based on the exact specifications and qualities in the razor that I gave him. Um, and that's where we're at right now. So this razor, both the standard plate and the hyper aggressive plate, they are razors that are designed for me. It's like I said, it's my favorite razor. The standard is Mandy's favorite razor. She uses it on her legs and armpits, and it's fantastic for her. Um, but it's they're razors that we used ourselves as the guinea pigs for. So we know they're not going to be for everyone because not everyone's going to have the same taste that we do. But we do think that there will be a market for people who do like an extremely aggressive razor, or we hope that's the case. And if not, we won't ever do another batch of them. We'll move on and try another head.
We can all breathe a collective sigh of relief once they're all set and kind of debut on the website. I'm sure for you it'd be good to kind of at least see what the market thinks, right? Because obviously everything till now has been behind the scenes.
We've had quite a few people. Like I said, we've had a handful of people that have done shave videos with them on YouTube. I did a shave video myself with the hyper aggressive, and we've done a pass around. There's currently a pass around with one on the Damn Fine Shave forum, and it's received a lot of positive reviews, but it's also received, just like I expected, received reviews from people that used it that absolutely hate it and want it to be buried and never sold to anyone, which is it's kind of what I expected. I expected it to be a polarizing razor because like I said, it's not at all going to be for everyone, but for me, I like it, and I hope there's enough people that shave like me that will like it. It's extensive talks with other artisans, and to a T, they will all get emails, or phone calls to the effect of, "Hey, you know, for example, for me, Executive Man, I've seen videos on Executive Man. I've seen all these posts on it that it's such a great scent. I just don't like it. I'm wondering if I've got a bad batch." Well, no, you just don't like it. I mean, that's just the way of it. At this point in the game, your Katie's Bubbles, your Barrister and Mans, your Declaration Groomings, they don't send out bad product. They've got, they've got fail safes in place. Like for example, we have a 3-person minimum that smells every batch of product, and we will lather every batch of soap to make sure it meets our standards. And we keep the sheets, we sign off on them, and that's why we now have batch numbers on every product, so that we keep notes. And as long as it's right, because anything that you're making small batch, there's going to be idiosyncrasies. There's going to be slight difference, especially if you're working with essential oils and you're making a new blend, 3 months down the line, or especially a year later. Cedar wood harvested in 2019 may not smell the same as cedar wood harvested in 2020. There's going to be a slight, uh, a minor difference. So that's why we keep the batch numbers, and that's something we took from research on base notes, the way House of Creed does their fragrances. Each batch of their fragrances has a code that goes with it, and you have people on there that they'll swear by batch whatever of Aventus, and then they'll swear batch this of Aventus smells like cat urine. So I mean, it's but we keep notes on our stuff so that we can go out and say, we know that what we put out to you is in the standards of of what we're trying to produce. And we'll do the same for the razors. The plan is, when they're finally in, every single one of them is going to get inspected by me and Mandy. We'll put a blade in each one, and we will put a micrometer up to each one to make sure that they have even blade exposure, they've got the correct blade gap for us, and then they'll get the white glove treatment before going out to the customer.
The amount of like detail, attention to detail, care, and just the fact that you and Mandy stand behind your product, right? I mean, from inception of the razor, again, since we were just talking about it, right? That's like, it's like that's your baby. It's another baby for the family.
Don, honestly, at this point, you have to, though.
Yeah.
There's so much competition in the wet shaving market now. If you start putting out bad product, you're going to get a name for yourself really quick. And there's been companies that have done that. I mean, I'm not going to name any names, but there's been a handful that they've got a reputation of, what you're ordering from them, you're getting a box of chocolates, because and we try to avoid that. We I mean, there's always, in any type of artisan thing, that there's going to be exceptions to the rule, and we're absolutely not perfect, but we take great pains to reduce the amount of times that I have to apologize to a customer for something not meeting their expectations.
So did you drop a reveal? Is the next Stirling scent gonna be cat urine? In fact, no, I'm just kidding.
But we could do sea otter urine. Um, we've in our my fragrance schooling, I've got a lot of kits, I've got a lot of individual fragrance opponents, or excuse me, components, and one of which is castoreum,
Yes.
which it's it's basically sea otter urine that's been scraped off the rocks in a certain place in the ocean, and it smells like it. um, and what's the other? We've got I've actually got a bit
I
of real.
believe it's briny is the term used, to describe.
Yeah,
Musky.
scent.
it's horrendous.
Musky.
I don't know how anybody uses it in fragrance. I still to this day can't use it to craft anything personally.
Hmm.
I keep it on hand along with a bottle of real Civitone,
Oh.
uh, which, if you don't know what Civitone, for the listeners, if you don't know what Civitone is, it's squeezed out of the anal glands of the civet, and it smells like it. So anytime we make a new hire at Stirling Soap, one of the things they have to do is, when we're teaching them about the smells, is we make them smell uncut Civitone and uncut castoreum, so that they can know what a rat's behind smells like, and what sea otter urine smells like, and understand that there's a lot of things that go into crafting a really nice fragrance.
To kind of to help wind things down, I'm just wondering, what do you envision for Sterling, or even just for yourself and your family? What do you see in the next like 4 or 5 years?
Honestly, right now it's hard to really. We're crafting multiple 5-year plans to say the least. But, one where life returns to some semblance of normalcy, but also one where normal looks different than we anticipated. Normal may include a lot of things that people are not particularly happy about having to deal with. Um, but basically what we're trying to do is just ensure that we're able to keep doing this. I love doing this. I mean, working for myself it's extremely rewarding. I'm beholden to Mandy and to my family, and we do what we can to take care of our family, but also we run a really tight group. When it comes to our employees, I'm Mandy and I are both former interrogators in our previous life. So I mean, when we bring somebody in for an interview, we grill them, and we make sure that they're going to fit in with us, and they're going to understand that we're going to expect a lot of them, but in return, we're going to do what we can to take care of them and elevate them from where they were when they started. And there's not a single person that works for us that doesn't have better pay and better benefits than they did at their previous job. And that's something that I'm extremely proud of. And we're basically anything that we plan for right now is maintaining the viability of Sterling Soap Company, but also ensuring that the people that do rely on Mandy and I to continue putting out products and trying to grow our company, you know, they and their families are taken care of. Because Mandy, it's been almost 5 years now since we hired our first employee, and we couldn't be this far without them. So you know, I love our workers. They're fantastic. We've got an awesome team, and we do what we can to make sure that they're taken care of. And part of that is, like I said, we try to engage with the wet shaving community. We try to do what we can to be kind. We try to do what we can to give back, and try to blow people away with our customer service, so that if there's a reason that they don't come back for a second order for Sterling soap, it's just because our product's not a good fit for them. It's not because of something we did. So I mean, as far as plans outside of that, razors and coffee, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Razors and coffee. If the coffee sells as well as I hope, who knows what's next? Maybe, I don't know. But either way, we're extremely we're fortunate, we're blessed, and we couldn't be happier with where we're at. We will finish up our ninth year in December. We start year 10 in January. Um, I'm honestly, I'm humbled, but I'm also, there's a lot of times I can't, looking back at all the things that we've gone through to get to this point. I really can't believe we've ever got this big. It's just, I love my life right now. That's all I can say. I'm happy.
I'm so happy to hear about the success, about kind of this journey that you've had, um, to be, from the point where you made your first batch of soap to getting self-employed, expanding that operation, and also just being being part of the community too. You're still a wet shaver, sharing your preferences, and soon preferences for a razor will be on the market. So yeah, I just want to thank you, Rod, for your time tonight to share a little bit of family update, of a business update, and we just want to really wish you just continued success for the rest of 2020 and beyond.
Thank you very much, Sean, and thanks, Gerard, as well. As I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me, because I said you guys and wet tubers and the people that do this kind of stuff, they're the people that post their shave of the day photos. I know you guys are doing us a great service. We don't reach new customers without you guys. I mean, word of mouth is our best friend. So I'm in your debt for having us on here to talk tonight. I really do appreciate it. And honestly, I can't believe we've already been an hour and a half. It's been fun. I've had a blast.
I know. It's our pleasure to have you on. Like I said, you were my gateway drug to to the world of artisan shave soaps, and I have you to thank for the sickness. No, I'm just kidding. It's my the sickness is all my own.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I can't imagine a wet shaving world, the wet shaving world without Stirling.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And so there's just so many. There's a few mainstays because there's so many people kind of popping up and just putting out like great products. John and I talk about how like it's crazy because I mean it's not like anyone that's come up maybe even in the past like 2, 3, 4 years. No one's putting out a bad product. You know, like I think you have to really try hard to put like a lackluster like product out there, and you guys are just such a solid foundation for so many people.
Thank you. I appreciate that.